Alright, welcome back everyone to Fighting Words. Today we have the pleasure of having the head of Simbrogi School of Western Martial Arts, Jeremy Pace, with us. Not that we know him at all.
No, it's not possible that there's insider anything going on here. But we are very grateful to be sitting at a table instead of interviewing over Skype. Even in 2020, we get to at least have an in-person interview, which I'm really personally grateful for. I think that's kind of fun.
Who knew we would miss human contact after this long?
Me, I knew.
Okay.
I saw this coming.
Oh my god. So thank you, Jeremy, for sitting down with us.
Thank you guys for having me.
Alright, so let's get started.
Okay, so clearly we're here to talk about tournaments, and you're wearing the shirt, Gesellen Fechten, and I always mispronounce it. Everybody corrects me. What's the official pronunciation, even though I've been there twice?
Well, the official pronunciation has an N at the end of it, so it's like Gesellen Fechten. So the term comes from, like, if you were a wandering, like an invitee swordsman or practitioner, right? If we invited you to come play with us or teach us or learn with us, you were a Gesellen, right?
Okay.
And that term really resonates with me, like what the tone of our event is, what we're trying to achieve. It's less, it is very heavily competition focused, but it's also very camaraderie. This is such a small community. We're all trying to achieve the same goals. We really do that best together, rather than always striving against each other. So,
is it analogous to kind of like the slots of traveling instructor that we have in the HEMA community, or is it more about like traveling fighters? Is there a distinction there to you, or?
There is a distinction, right? Because you don't necessarily have to be an instructor to be someone who is going to another place to learn, right? You're more a traveling learner, and maybe you teach along the way. Maybe you bring information or insight or a perspective. I think all that is really important, and us being open to that as the hosts of the event, that people may have different views and perspectives on what we're all trying to achieve. It's not about homogenization of the culture so much as it is, welcoming these new ideas and perspectives and finding ways to improve what we're doing, because we're all working on the same material. We're all working on how to swing a weapon at each other. It's really just a matter of, maybe somebody's doing that a little bit better or in a different way that we haven't thought of, and it's a good opportunity as a community to come together and work on that.
Very cool.
Yeah, because I know like a lot of tournaments we go to. Not that I've ever been to a tournament with you in my entire life.
Right, never.
No.
A lot of tournaments you can have like this feeling that we're here to prove who's best.
Right.
And one of the number one things that people we've both interviewed and people that have come to Gesellen have all talked about, like, it doesn't feel like a normal tournament in that way. So what would you say is like the goal that you set out to when you made the event?
I think that's a really good question. My goals come from having negative tournament experiences and some positive ones as well. And I'm sure most of the people watching this are aware of like my ranking or our reputation as a school, or they have some vested interest in why they're watching this video, so they're probably already aware of how well we normally do in tournaments. We may do very well in a tournament and not make any friends, right? We may do very well and perform to our standards or above our standards and not have a good time.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of money and a lot of energy and effort to put into an event that you're getting paid to go beat people up, or to show your art and have it not appreciated. That is something that I don't want anybody else to have that experience.
Right.
We may not understand their art. That's the nature of art. Or think that maybe sometimes it's even ugly, or maybe it's not up to our own standards. But you have to appreciate the journey that people are in and where they're at. So both of you have helped with refereeing, judging, being involved in that, in that part of the process. We don't ever want to be antagonistic to the practitioners, the competitors, the people that are there. We don't want to create a negative environment for them. We want to make sure that as much as possible that they're having a good time, they're enjoying themselves, they're getting something out of it. We enforce like handshakes, that type of thing. I think that camaraderie and approach to one another, celebration of one another and what we're doing is different than most events I've been to.
Yeah. There's a lot of it. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I wanted to jump in with something. And clearly, I mean, I've been your student for years now, so a lot of my experience with HEMA is through your philosophy and all of that. But you're the person, an instructor, and having interviewed a bunch of people now on this podcast, you're the person I hear talk about the art of fighting more than anybody else. Not that other people don't mention it, but it is a constant theme from you. How do you feel like that focus from you has impacted the philosophy of the tournament? Not the training and the teaching and all of that, but the tournament itself. Do you feel like that's created a different atmosphere, and how?
Well, I think the difference between sport and a martial art is the art piece, right? If I am training a group of students how to do something efficiently, I should be doing that under the premise, the structure of the art itself, right? It's not to say that the thing should be beautiful or that it should give you some aesthetic experience, right? But there are, in my opinion at least, there are reasons for everything that we do and an overlying understanding that has to be there. That can sometimes come off as a little esoteric, I think, or a little, hard to quantify. And that's, to me, that's kind of what art is. But otherwise, I think we'd be doing Olympic fencing, right? If I just wanted to show you how to get to point A to point B the fastest, and then give you guidelines and rules within how to achieve that, that's strictly focused on the sport aspect of what we're doing. If instead we're talking about nuances of defense and cultural context and, maybe the significance of not starting this close together, but starting in wide play so that you can move into position and, what you're trying to achieve by that. Right. It's not so much about showing your art, is more showing your understanding of the material, showing your philosophy and your approach to the material. Someone may be very, very fast at just moving in a straight line and scoring a point on you. But your objective, right, shouldn't be to outplay them in that game. It should be to show your art. What have you been working on? What have your goals been the past year or so since we saw you last? What have you been trying to achieve? And then displaying that. Who wins the match? Nobody's going to remember that. Nobody cares in the big scheme of things, right? But we all remember that distinct flavor, that approach of what someone's doing, and how they manage to get from point A to point B is sometimes more important than who got there first, if that makes any sense.
It does.
Yeah. So, because tournaments have to quantify it, how has our Simbrogi's little philosophy on this, how has it entered into the rules to bring that out?
So, a lot of ways. This is a really big question.
This is my favorite. No, this is my favorite question. We ask everybody this question, kind of how does your philosophy impact your rules? Why do you like them that way? And yes, it's a big question. We're expecting you to talk a lot. Please, let's hear it.
Okay. If you want to skip ahead, move to...
This is the nerdy stuff, but we like it.
Move to minute 26. Okay, so... I think our philosophy is excellence in all that we do martially. I think that, nobody, like, I know individuals and I've worked with people, we've worked with other schools, other clubs that they're in a different phase than we are. And there's nothing wrong with that. We all maybe started there. Maybe they're two guys working in their backyard, right? Maybe they don't have some of the gear that we have. Maybe they don't have the depth of students that we have. Or the indoor facility like we do, that we have pretty much just to ourselves, that we can schedule classes and work within those guidelines.
We have lots of flexibility in that way, that's true.
We're further down that path, I think, than a lot of other places are. So it's important to acknowledge that. Our philosophy isn't one so much of how do I say it without sounding rude?
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
Don't take advice from Kyle. Be polite. You should say it, but be polite.
It's not so much of a right or wrong perspective, right? It's not who's right, who's wrong, and what they're doing. I get why some groups maybe wouldn't want to take hand shots, or they would want to, reward a deeper target. We try, as a school, our focus is around martial excellence in everything that we do. Which, I mean, anybody could say that, and everybody could say that.
Well, then tell us what that's opposed to. So when you say that we're focused on martial excellence, you mean that in contrast to...
In contrast to, for example, let's go back to hand shots, right? Hand shots are something of a controversial topic. They're very easy to score, tough to defend, right?
Yeah.
In our rule system, we give them the same weighted value as any other shot. Because martially speaking, it's debatable if you'd be able to continue to fight after getting struck in the hand, right? That, to me, is an important distinction. It's not, showing your art isn't as much about the ability to hit Jonathan in the head as it is Jonathan's ability to defend that position, right? He's taken a position, he's taken a guard, he's made a decision tactically on how he gets there, and then it's his responsibility to defend it, okay? So the way that we value excellence is in the defense of the thing. So if I can strike him on the hands, he has an opportunity in his hands, right? And that's an opportunity that he should then go back and he should work on and approach from perspective, not give excuses on, well, Kyle only won because he just hit me in the hands the whole time. He hit you in the hands the whole time because your hands
Because my hands were available, yeah.
And that's something that in your art you have a weakness in. And you need to be honest about that and approach that with a realistic perspective.
Would it be fair to say that the way that this rule set focuses things is put the emphasis on did you defend yourself or not, rather than how was your attack?
Absolutely. Yes. 100%. Thank you.
Yeah.
From not, taking this to a 10-minute conversation to an hour-long conversation. I appreciate that.
Sorry.
So it is easy to look at, it is an easy answer first to give things like right of way. Who struck first? Who had initiative? Who attacked first? Who was the one that was posing the attack, and who was the one that should have defended and then attacked back? It's a pretty easy answer, and I think it's where most fencing kind of draws that line, right?
Yeah, and like one of the things that we got upset with was, I remember some of the tournaments we've been together, and for my own self, was differential points became a point where like I could take hits and deliver a hit back, and it became a game of, well, I will give up this point for that point, and then for ourselves, like the injury rate started climbing up very quickly, right? Because I mean, once you allow somebody to just like, okay, it's now a game in my head of I eat this so that I'll take a 2-point hit on me so I can get a 3 to 5 point on them, and then like we balance that out, and then it's like I still come ahead even though I just suicided. So,
well, and besides the fact that once the moment that rubric is in your head, this is a pure game and there's no art left anymore. I would argue there's not art in trading point values. Art would be in defense.
Yeah, I think it's not so much a matter of no art. Right, it's easy for us to say that from our philosophical perspective.
Sure,
okay?
Sure. We are sitting around the table in the same shirts. We come from the same background. I get that.
all have the same, genetic makeup there.
Right.
It's not to say that those people aren't even skilled fencers, or that they don't have art in what they're doing, or that they're not really good at the game that they're playing. Right. My position on martial excellence should be that whatever game your opponent is playing, you don't necessarily know what those questions are going to be yet. You don't know what problems they're going to pose to you.
Right.
Your evaluation of yourself and your skill, besides just who won the stupid match or who won the event, your evaluation of your skill should be how adept you are at answering questions. Right?
Oh, interesting.
Whatever question your opponent poses, whatever math problem they put in front of you, or whatever situation they apply, that you, even if you don't know the answer, you have steps to the solution, right? You know, well, this particular person was very, very adept at thrusts. They're very adept at thrusts. They hit me often to the side. I understand now this is a potential area I need to train more. I need to focus on, or the common complaint. You know, well, my opponent was left-handed, or you know, they were taller. They were taller than me, or whatever scenario, right?
Kyle outweighed me by 50 pounds.
Wherever your opponent is strong, you should not fight them in that place, right? You should fight them to their weakness, right? If they have no weakness, then they're probably better than you. And that's just a cold, hard reality of any type of combat art.
Well, but there's still something to be learned for your practice from that. Like, even if they're better than you in every category, you can see the weaknesses in you that are stronger than others, the places where you were able to defend yourself and the places you weren't, and it can still be that path for growth.
I think that the reason that more groups, schools, clubs, competitions don't come to the same answer, even though most of us probably acknowledge that what I'm saying is probably right. I think it is. After years of doing it, I think it is. And I'm honest about the question.
Right.
But I think the reason that most of us don't, let's just be real, let's just be honest.
Yeah.
It is very difficult to go to an event and acknowledge your own failure. Right? Okay, this person was XYZ better than I was in this particular area or this particular discipline, or, I mean, we've all lost, right? All of us have lost.
Yeah.
And whether that person won because they were better at playing their game, or we were having a bad day, or we were tired from a previous match or whatever, to me, there are two paths you can look at this. Blame on the person, or honesty with the self, right? Yeah, I was tired in this match. I was tired. I didn't move. I moved 40% of my overall capacity. I felt like I was moving through mud. Well, what's the answer to that?
Get better at cardio.
Get better.
Yes. Got a bag out there. Let's go.
Train in such a way that that's not a factor.
Right.
That
Deal with that weakness.
Deal with that weakness. It's not a matter of, well, it's not fair because that guy, he didn't have to fight 2 fights in a row like I did. Okay, you're focusing on the competition and not what the competition is trying to teach you, right?
Yeah. Well, and a big moment in my martial arts career, for lack of a better term, was my first out of town tournament, going with the team and you guys, and just getting decimated. Oh my God! Like Austin that first morning, I fought in the longsword tournament with the single exchanges, and that was not the game I was used to playing.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready for that, and I just got eaten alive. And I had to walk away and be upset for a few minutes before I could get my center back and realize, oh, no. I wrote a goddamn list. I sat down and wrote a list. I don't know if y'all remember. These are the things I clearly need to work on, and I had to get my head wrapped around it in that way. But and I want to tell that story briefly because I think that philosophy is very valuable. Like, these are the things that I take from my martial arts experience that are helpful in my work life and in my personal life. These things that make me a better human, honestly, as we grow and as we change. So I'm grateful that that's the philosophy we're talking about. So I'd like to segue from that into, can you briefly describe what makes the rule set for your tournament unique and kind of what people should expect?
Okay, to go.
Yeah, so let me rephrase that question, with kind of all of that in mind and thinking through those philosophies and why those are important to you. Can you briefly describe to the viewers what the rule set for your tournament is, how that's related to that philosophy, and kind of what they should expect if they come to Gesellen Fechten 2021, hopefully?
Well, so the big overarching thing that I think I could position that people could take away would be, we focus on rounds won rather than matches won or lost. So, for example, if Jonathan, Kyle, and I were all in a pool together, if we all had to fight one another, let's say each one of those fights is 3 rounds. Jonathan is trying to retain or win his 3 rounds versus Kyle versus myself. So he potentially walks out of this pool with 3 rounds because he defended and scored against Kyle 3 times, and 3 rounds versus defending and scoring against
I
me
love this
3
pipe
times.
dream scenario where I beat them both 3 times. That's particularly
in
nice.
a row.
Yeah, right.
So he'd walk away with 6 rounds. Kyle walks away with 3 rounds. I walk away with no rounds. So ultimately, we're focused not just Jonathan beat Kyle, Jonathan beat Jeremy. That's one way to approach this scenario. That's not what is happening at this event. What happens at this event is Jonathan has 6 total rounds, and then he is evaluated based on how often he survived and all of the rounds that he took place in against everyone else that also was competing. So he did very well in his pool. Another guy or another participant in the event got 5 rounds or got 8 rounds or got 12 rounds. They did very, very well as well. Could Jonathan have done better? These are the opportunities.
The minutiae, right?
Yeah. The big differences are if Kyle and Jonathan are in a match together and they're fighting, if they hit each other, either after blow, double kill, however you want to define that, within 2 tempo, then they both lose the round. They're both dead. They both lost. Kyle hits Jonathan, Jonathan hits Kyle, they both lost. That's pretty simple. If Jonathan hits Kyle in the hand, and then he defends against Kyle, anything Kyle was going to do within 2 tempo, then Jonathan walks away with 1 round. And then we just.
But it still counts as a loss for Kyle in that case.
Yeah.
Yes,
right.
That's a missed opportunity for Kyle. Yeah.
Which is really the more penalizing thing in this rule set. Is
Yes.
those losses matter way more than the wins.
Right. And the doubles do too.
Well, because they
Right.
count as a loss. If we
For
double
both.
out, we both get a
both.
loss. Nobody
Yeah.
wins, and there's no draw mechanic.
Right.
Yeah.
So it definitely punishes the lack of defense, because we keep talking about like defense, be able
Yes.
to defend yourself. And other tournaments, like, well, a double, like, we have literally watched people just repeatedly double each other because the rule set allows that. And it's like, this has been a 10-minute match. And it's like, I got hit, I hit you. Well, that's a double. Got hit, I hit you.
Well, yeah,
that's
you
a
can
double.
salvage a bad round with terrible fighting by making sure you get that after blow, so you
Right.
get another chance.
Exactly.
And so that it kind of eliminates that, and the fact that the tiebreaker for most people in the rule set is like, well, who has the most losses?
Right.
Well, doubles count.
Doubles
So
count as losses.
you can
Yeah.
you can compound your negativity on your score.
And it helps that, each pool is ranked against the other pools, right? So if we have 4 different pools of fighters, usually you've got, of course, 4 people that walk out as the top seed out of that pool, right? But there's a difference between, Jonathan sweeping his pools, not getting scored against at all, not double killing, not anything. He defended himself perfectly.
I'm really enjoying this imaginary tournament in our heads. This has been really good for
You've
me.
been very charitable letting us use your home, so I figure...
I appreciate that. it's a good ego boost. I'll take the gassing. That's fine.
Versus, somebody who just eked out double kills and was just a point ahead of, in a different rule set, and they won their pool. Did they really win their pool? Right. They died 15 times, right? Not exactly a fair comparison. So Jonathan, even though he is maybe the more skilled fencer in this equation, in this pool, in this scenario, he has to deal with the thought that, well, these other pools are going on, and these people may also be performing very well, and I need to be as perfect as possible. So there's a high amount of accountability to each exchange.
Right.
That being said, that's one section of it. So we do have a very high level of accountability. Any martially sound, valid strike, thrust, cut, cue, all count. Wrestling, of course, counts. Pommel strikes count. All valid.
And they're all the same value. We don't differentiate.
All the same value. Yeah.
Me
All the
throwing
same
him to
value.
the ground versus him cutting my throat versus
Or even a hand
stabbing.
shot. Yeah.
Stabbing,
It's all the
thrusting, pummeling, no matter what, it's all the same.
All the
You
same.
either won or you lost.
Won or lost in that round.
Right.
And then you miraculously are revived and you get another
Right.
opportunity, right?
And it's 5 exchanges each, right?
It depends. It
Oh,
depends.
that's
We may play with that value a little bit depending on the overall amount of participants. There may be 3 exchanges or 5 exchanges, but we do usually that's one compliment we get a lot, is we get a lot more fights in.
Yeah.
We get a lot more rounds in total.
Yeah, because my optimal would be to fight every single person they bring to the tournament, including the participants. So the closer we get to that, the better. One of the things I want to hit on, which was a complaint we had, and we discussed this in private, but I want to discuss it in public, is
With the camera rolling. Here
with the camera rolling. I don't typically get to do confessions with the camera on unless it's in court, but it's the
I'm
starting.
not asking follow-up questions.
Do not ask follow-up questions.
I'm leaving that alone.
Is the starting distance. What made you decide that we should start so far away from each other?
Okay. So I think people need to be honest about the question, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so why would there be any difference between starting further away from each other versus starting closer together, or having a bigger ring versus a smaller ring? Why would that be a problem or a factor at all?
Mm-hmm.
I think if we're honest about it, I think the narrower the space, like if you're fighting on a strip, you're then determining that your opponents can't circle out, they can't move offline very well.
You're limiting some techniques for sure.
You're limiting something, right? You're starting close together, then you're positioning something positively that you really want your fighters to right out the gate be moving towards each other, right? Probably. Smaller rings, of course, are gonna, there's gonna be more blade work, less footwork, less positioning. I think you're trying to artificially create scenarios with that. And maybe, that's your right. That's your right at your event. But that being said, are you doing that because of the way that your school or club or whatever you call it, or are you doing it because that's what they like to do? And if so, the lens that I would ask that you look at that through is, does that mean that the people that don't fight that way are going to have as good a time? If they like a bigger section of area, to be able to maneuver and show their art, show what they've been working on, show what they're capable of, right? If they have that opportunity to do that, and maybe they don't use it, maybe they don't need it, maybe they haven't been working on it, then that's okay, right? Maybe they like to start closer, that's okay. But if you are intentionally starting them closer and they've primarily been working on outside distance work, working on the onset, the approach to the fight, setting up position, maybe footwork has been a big aspect of what their goals have been for the year. And now they don't have an opportunity to do any of that in your event. Is this a successful event for them? And that's, to me, besides our own personal preference, because I could talk about that.
Sure.
I think you give more opportunity for whatever this other guest school or club has done or worked on when you give them more options. I think that's the simple answer.
Yeah, because starting them further away actually gives them the option. If you want to beeline it to the person,
You can.
yeah. Or if you want to play the circling game,
You can.
yeah.
Yeah.
Versus, I can't remember who we interviewed, but they talked about they wanted to start in Krieg and basically.
Oh yeah, I remember. Man, we're gonna have to go back and look at the tape. 'Cause,
Gonna
yeah,
have
somebody
to-
was talking about that.
Yeah, they want to start right. Okay, they were like, screw the approach. We want to start right here and then just go for it.
I love Krieg, and we work on Krieg constantly.
When we
and,
reset, we
yeah.
reset close.
Yeah,
in our rule
absolutely.
set.
If someone gets pushed out of a ring or something or a bad call, we just put them right in the back in the middle.
Yeah, we put them right back in the middle, right in front of each other, for sure. No stepping out of the ring intentionally to try and create space again. Sure.
Yeah.
But if someone is saying, to me at least, if somebody is saying, well, we prefer to fight in XYZ method, right? And we want to set up an event to emphasize that method, then that to me feels a little bit biased. It feels a little bit biased, and maybe that's okay. I mean, it is your event. You're going through great cost and time to set this up and organize it. But our goals are different. Again, we're on a different place in that path. Our goals are, I have students that excel at work in Krieg. I have students that excel in footwork. Right? I want all of those students to have an opportunity to be able to show their art.
You'd rather present every fighter with an open canvas they can express their art how they want, as opposed to cutting off pieces of it
Absolutely.
predetermined. Okay,
Thank you.
I like that.
Yeah, because sometimes whenever people get reset to the middle in Krieg, the first thing I watch some people do is they both jump back,
Some people do. That's
and
true.
some people charge right in, and then one person charges, the other person moves, and it gives more options versus if I put y'all in something about yay big and said, well, fight, well, that's, you better be...
Well, it makes that a part of it. If we're resetting there instead of continuously starting there.
Right, if we...
It makes that a part of what we're doing, a part of the art we're showing, a part of our decision calculus. without it being the only thing
Right.
we're working with. Because that's been my experience. Even when we're resetting, when you start that close, most of the game is who's first off the blocks.
Yeah.
That's most of it.
Yeah.
Who had a plan when they said engage, and who got there first.
Yeah,
Right.
because it turns more into like a Western where it's like, okay, and fastest draw is probably going to win this versus...
And I'm a fast dude. I'm not saying I hate that. Like, but yeah, it's a thing.
Yeah.
It's not the whole picture.
Versus
I would agree.
Versus like a dogfight where we're trying to get position on. Because we're more dogfighting school where we want to make position.
Yeah. I mean, I think
That's a good description. I like that. Yeah.
you know, I like the idea of being able to, you know, approach it as a battlefield, and that we can fight on any portion of the battlefield. You know, we have really strong wrestlers. We have people that are very, very good at, because that's a big part of our school. They're very good in Cree. They're really good at pommel strikes. They know how to do all of the weapon trapping, arm wrenching, arm locking maneuvers. They're very good at that type of
I
thing.
can't wait to learn that.
But that being said, it's, you know, how do you counter somebody that's really good at that? Well, you outmaneuver them. You don't let them get that close.
You fight
So-
in the Abzug and annoy me to death.
Right.
Like your son.
Don't let Kyle close. That's the moral
That's
of this,
the moral
this
of the
entire
story.
section.
Yeah.
Don't let Kyle
If you don't know
close.
the word Abzug, you better start learning it.
Yeah.
Right.
So one of the things I want
Let's,
to talk
wait,
about...
let's go ahead and do our stop between questions, if this is a good moment.
It's skipped out just a second ago, so we're good.
Oh, okay. So
Okay.
go ahead and start in on
Yeah,
this
here.
one.
Okay, so whenever we get started on the tournament, I know the first section that we just talked about is the pools.
Mm-hmm.
Do we do another set of pools? Do we then go into a bracket? What is next after I show up, I get signed up, I get in my first set of pools, I'm trying not to die. Where do I go from there?
So every year we've done this a little bit differently, but what we try to do, one of our big priorities is to make sure that people that have paid the money to come to this event, they have a lot of fights, right? You have a lot of opportunity. I've been to so many events where, like, you know, I'm pretty good. I think most of the time I'm pretty consistent. I have a lot to work on, but I think I feel a little guilty when, you know, I'm in a pool of 4 people that you can tell they're relative novices, you know, just because of the way people stack rank the pool. You know, if I'm top seed in a pool and I'm working with 4 people that maybe one of them is okay, they've been fighting a year, and 3 of them are brand new. And I feel bad knowing that there are going to be 1 or 2 of those people, they're going to be cut after this. And so their only experience fighting today that they paid all this money for and all this energy for was
that one pool.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, they had that one pool. They had 4 fights to work with, and that was it. So, you know, I want to make our event at least give those people an opportunity to get that experience they need, to learn something, to work with as many people as possible.
Right.
You know, after you fight Kyle and you get ran over 5 times in a row, and you
Yes.
pick yourself up off the ground, you may be very frustrated and you may have a very bad pull. So we reset the pools typically. We go through and we reshuffle and let you work with a different set of 4 people, and you have another opportunity in the pools again. And then we take how many rounds you won out of your first set of pools versus how many rounds you won out of your second set of pools.
So 100% of the fighters fight in the first pools, like everybody's tournament. But then we have another round of pools with 100% of the fighters.
Yes.
And how does the results from the first set of pools affect the second?
They're just cumulative, right? So Kyle ran you over 5 times, rattled you. You had a really rough pool. Maybe you walked out with 3 total rounds out of 5, 10, 15, 20 potential rounds. So you only walked away with 3, right? In that first set. Well, you take a minute, you take an hour or whatever, you eat something, you get your blood sugar down a little bit, you feel better. Do your second set of pools against a different set of 4 people. Thankfully, Kyle's not in there this time.
Woo woo.
I'm going to interrupt. So I'm a Magic nerd. Is it like Magic tournaments where if I lose, I'm now playing and fighting against the losers, or if I win, I'm going up? Is that compared to that way?
It's
or?
just copacetic. Like we just reshuffle.
Completely
and
random.
Yeah, randomly.
So the fact that Kyle ran my ass over 5 times in a row in my first pool, and I just got decimated, doesn't mean I'm fighting down in the kiddie pool.
No.
It's just 100% random still.
Yes.
Okay.
It's like we restarted the entire tournament.
You may have another version of Kyle. You may have.
Well, yeah, with my luck, it'd be Kyle in the first pool, Derek in the second. I know, but
So that in that second set of pools, you do much better. Out of 20 potential rounds, you walk away with 12, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you walk away with 3 rounds, 12 rounds. You walk away with 15 rounds, and having that, even if that's still not enough to get out of the pools and to get into the Elims situation. You still had more experience. You had more total fights. You had more total rounds. You had an opportunity to recover from your losses. It's a learning experience, how you play the game and how you adapt and adjust to it. And I think most people appreciate the opportunity to work more.
So what is that Elim situation you refer to?
So we've changed this every year a little bit, but we're still heavily in favor of Elim pools instead of Elim brackets. The Elim pools, essentially, if we have 100 competitors in the initial set of pools that entered into the tournament, after we do the one set of pools, second set of pools, then we usually cut half of the competition. So the bottom half are not moving on to Elims typically, or the bottom third, maybe you're not moving on to Elims. That number varies a little bit. When they go to Elims, we do an Elim pool, just like we did the pools earlier on. Okay. So you do an Elim pool, and then potentially what we want to do is do a second set of Elim pools, the same way that we did the initial set of pools.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is that what it was? I've been very drunk, I guess, since then. But was that what it was in 2019? Like the last time we had two sets of Elim pools?
Yeah. And then from there, where do we go to? So
we go to a finals bracket.
Okay. So then
at the final, how many people usually in the finals bracket?
It depends. Again, it's varied every year.
Okay.
Usually we go top 8.
Top 8.
Yeah.
And then it's like a traditional bracket, 3 to 5 exchanges, and then like
single elimination, right?
Single.
Yeah.
And then we move up to pretty much like a standard tournament after that.
Yep.
So
One of the big things that I think we're going to do different in 2021, and I think I'm excited about this. Our sister school, WHFA in Wisconsin, had a really good idea for how they included. They didn't have a separate event for the women's division. They didn't have like the open and the women's division as normally done. They had them as like a subset within the tournament. Like they did the top 8 women out of the open moved on into the women's finals, essentially, is what they did.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
So I like that idea, but I really want to expand on it. I want to make a lot of small
subcategories.
A lot of subcategories.
Oh, like what?
So like a 18 and under division, right? If you've got 4 or 5 17-year-olds and maybe they didn't do as well in the open, either way we're moving them into that subdivision to give them another opportunity. But we could even be more creative with it than that. We can do regional divisions, right? Like I want the top 8 out of the open, all the people who did the pools and the Elims and the open. At that point, the people who won the most rounds from Oklahoma, So we have all of the Oklahomans, the top 8, top 16 or whatever fight each other in their own small little bracket tournament. They may not have been in the top, 50 in the open division.
Sure.
They may not have made it, but they were the top
out of the Oklahoma fighters. Or,
yeah.
Well, this is the first I'm hearing of this. This is such a great idea. It allows you to have, because you can run an 8-person bracket so fast. Yeah, so you can get all these fights in. You get more
and more celebration, right?
Right,
More
because those are always the
opportunity for
exciting
them to
fights
show.
anyways.
Yeah.
And if you can get somebody, even if they're not performing at the point where they're going to be in the top 8 in the open,
Exactly.
they should still have. I like that. It gives them an opportunity to have some of that excitement closer to the end of the tournament when more people are watching.
Right.
More of a showing off of their art, even if it's not at the top level.
And how cool is it to say, well, I'm the champion of Texas? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty cool, right?
That's a great idea. I'm excited to hear that.
And I think that goes back to our culture of it's not just about like I come in who took first place overall.
Yeah.
It's we have more to celebrate than just like who was top dog at this event.
And somebody said something to me that like I understood where they're coming from, but I did take a little exception to it. That they go, well, I mean, yeah, but isn't that kind of like a participation trophy? And I don't think so. I think I kind of understand where they're coming from.
Yeah.
You know, the open category for sure. I mean, you probably had to work the hardest there out of anything else, right? You had to fight everybody. You had to fight your way through this Elim pool.
Yeah, it's a Shark Tank.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's everybody, right? But I think a little bit of recognition for all of the people from outside the United States, for example. If we gave all of those people an opportunity to work against each other, I think it's a heck of a show. I think it's a heck of a show.
Well, based off their
test
rankings
for
on
them.
how they did in the open pool. So it's not it's not just that we're taking all the people from outside the United States and sectioning them off in their little quarantine tank or whatever, and they're fighting. No. You're saying based on your rankings in the open pools, now we're going to put the top 8 from outside the United States or from in Oklahoma. I would struggle to call that a participation trophy because you're still bracketing it. You're still saying based
still
on
have
your
to earn
results,
it.
you have to earn your spot in that top 8.
And
We're just saying there's more than one top 8 you can aim for.
Right.
I can understand the critique.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that. I can understand the critique, and if that's frustrating to people, I don't think I'd argue with them.
But
I
you're
don't
still
think that's
having to
what it
get
is.
beat up on to get a medal. I mean, participation is like I showed up, I tripped, oh god, I scraped my knee, I
Right.
didn't finish the race,
I still got the medal.
I still got a medal. Versus
Yeah.
like I got hit by a longsword repeatedly.
Well, and I'm not inherently offended by participation trophies. Like, I mean, I've coached 5-year-old soccer. You hand every 5-year-old a trophy.
Yeah.
I get that, but yeah, no, I don't think that's what we're describing here.
Yeah.
I don't think so either. I think for me, like if we went to Minsk or something, right?
Right.
Maybe we weren't very good at that game, or we didn't prepare the right way, or maybe there were, nuances there that we just were not, we weren't prepared for, right?
Right.
We didn't perform as well as we thought we would. It would still be really neat to, have an opportunity to go out in front of everybody and have our own little finals division as, the USA team, right? The USA, the top 8 out of the USA have an opportunity to fight each other and prove who's best amongst them, right?
And I think there's a moment of humility in it. And I mean, maybe I'm biased. I mean, we're all sitting here wearing some Broggie shirts, clearly, right? But I think the game we play is different than the game that's played in Colorado, as we learned last summer, right?
Yeah.
And I think if you've got people from Colorado coming to fight with us, I think it says something if we're willing to say, yeah, sure, maybe this is a different game. Maybe the people who play this game year in, year out did better in this tournament than you did. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't let you show what your game is.
Right.
Here's all the people from Colorado, or the top 8 people from Colorado, the people who proved themselves in the open pools. All right, we're all watching now. It's just y'all. Show us what you're doing. Let's see it.
Yeah.
I think there's a humility in that I, at risk of being a little too blunt, I think the HEMA community could use a little more of. I think the more we're willing to sit and watch other people's art, even if it's not what we want to do,
Yeah.
I think we could all, even if we're not going to learn something martial from it, even if we're not going to take any of that and apply it to our tournament game, which is fine, that's not I don't think that should be offensive to anybody. I think it shouldn't be offensive to us to sit and honestly, genuinely watch it for what it is.
Yeah.
So, tell us a little bit more about like the sub brackets and kind of what brought this into your mind.
The biggest thing I think is one of my biggest pet peeves is when, like, I've got people that are fighting for gold, silver, bronze, or something, and then you're looking over and everybody else is packing up. Everybody's packing up. They're getting their stuff together.
You and I have talked about this significantly.
There's like, you look around and it's, what have we been here this whole weekend for, right? And there's like 8 people watching, and everybody else is doing their own thing. Nobody cares. And maybe that's a critique on the way that we fight or something, but I don't see it just with us.
That's consistent.
Yeah. Multiple tournaments I've been at where it's like when we get down to the final bracket, people are leaving to eat, people are doing this. No, it's not exciting anymore.
With one exception, I want to note, since we named names on this podcast, when we went to Macho in Denver last summer, the finals, like the bronze, silver, and gold matches there was, 100 people watching? Everybody was quiet, there was cheering, and it was an intense, everybody was really watching those. But I think that's the only tournament I've been to where it felt that way.
Yeah. I don't know what the difference there was, but my thought is what I would like to do is have all of the pools, all of the Elims on like Friday. We do all of the weapons divisions. We do all of it on Friday. And then we do all of the finals, all the bracket finals, all the subdivisions, all the different weapons on a different day.
Well, that way, like, when people show up, no one is fatigued from being there for 6 hours.
They haven't eaten in 12 hours. Yeah,
and you're sitting there going like, it's great. I'm glad that you're in the finals. Tell me how it went. I am starving to death.
Well, not to mention, like, my first experience in the finals was I am dying. I have been fighting all day. I haven't eaten anything but a granola bar and chugged a little bit of caffeine. I think somebody had a flask like that. And now here I am, walking into my toughest fights of the day.
Right.
So, yeah, I think there's a lot
having
of
a night to sleep on it and, like, recover so you put out an actual good game the next day.
Yeah, exactly, right? So, like, if we're focused on the art, if that's really what we're honestly here for, and not just the winning, right? Not just the, $20 gold medal that you get.
Who powered through.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not an endurance test.
Shouldn't be.
Sometimes it is.
Well, that shouldn't be the primary thing.
Right.
If it's just about athleticism, then I can see that argument. We need to just go straight through it. But it's like, if it's the greater the fatigue, the less skill will be shown.
Yeah.
So
the more chance for injury.
Yeah.
The more chance for people doing dumb things.
Yeah, I think every injury I've ever seen in a tournament was late in the day.
Yeah.
I very rarely have ever seen anything during the beginning pools someone get injured. It's always been semifinals, finals. People are just like dog tired.
We're on the line, and I'm tired.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a bad combination.
Stress goes up, fatigue goes up, skill goes down, decisions go down.
So we do all the pools, the regular pools, the Elim pools. We do all that stuff in one day, and then on another day, for every weapon division, for every subdivision, for everything we're doing, we do nothing but finals that day. Which maybe this isn't like a revolutionary idea. I'm sure other places have done it. But to me, it just seems like we have so many people coming to these events now. And it may make more sense on a cost-wise, to maybe try and work it all into one day.
Yeah.
Maybe you only have the soccer court or the basketball court or whatever for
that
10
Saturday,
hours, sure. But if that means that we have to charge more for the event, if we've got to put in more time, if we got to take a day of PTO, to get out there and do it, I would rather have a good experience and make sure as many of our guests as possible have a good experience.
Right.
I feel like that's clearly a good idea, but I think my immediate concern would be, my experience with tournaments already has been that there's always one day where everybody's there, and the day before and the day after, depending on how the tournament's scheduled and set up, it's always, even our tournament last year in 2019, like the Dagger tournament on Sunday, there were 30 people.
Yeah, people flying out.
So do you worry that if you set it across like a Friday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday in that way, that you'd have less participation?
Maybe. I think we go through and we set it up on Friday for all of everybody needs to be there on that day, right? On the Friday. And then Saturday is when the finals happen. And then Sunday is whatever exhibition or fun or whatever extra stuff we want to do that day. If anybody can make it, maybe they're more local, or maybe they've got a few days in that they can take. I just think there need to be dedicated days for those events, and doing that first one earlier instead of doing it on Saturday and then nobody showing up to finals on Sunday except the people that are in finals. Everybody will know, well, I need the whole day Friday, I need the whole day Saturday to fight.
Versus Sunday. So, let's say I am somebody who am brand new to HEMA, or I'm thinking about going to this tournament. What prep or skill do I need to have under me before coming?
And not just brand new people, but people just unfamiliar with the tournament.
If your instructor, or if in your own training you were looking at the best ways to attack, if your view set is more on the best ways to score, that perspective will not get you very far in what we're doing. I saw last year and the year before, we had so many, good fencers, so many really qualified people that did not make it very far because they doubled out, or they were used to taking that hand shot so they could get the thrust in, and not being called that's a double,
Okay.
or not used to having to defend themselves within 2 tempi, I'd say the biggest thing will be focusing on footwork. We'll be focusing on basic defenses. Stopping whatever your opponent is trying to execute that you have an answer for as far as your defense and protecting yourself. We all spout that idiom, right? That the start of defense, it's the start of protecting yourself. Right. It's about protecting yourself. And then you go to an event, a competition, and people just right out the gate are just firing at each other, seeing who can kill each other the fastest.
Just cuts to one.
If it was sharp steel, nobody's doing that.
Yeah.
Nobody's fighting that way. People are like, why does Sheetalhow not work? Why is Sheetalhow not effective? And it's like, well, you have headgear on.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not
scared.
As soon as you see that one sword coming for your forehead, it's like, now I understand.
I have to move out of Oliver. Yeah.
Oh, God.
Right. Defense becomes more of a priority, and it should. In this event, we try to make everything as important as possible that you are protecting yourself at all times. Now, that being said, the referee, the head judge, referee person is trying to look out for the safety of the fighters and everything they do. So, like, if you and Kyle lock up in a position that, in viewing it, we think that you can't defend yourself, we're going to stop the action right there. Kyle wins the round. Even though maybe you could have outstrengthed Kyle or picked him up in the air and thrown him into the crowd or something, maybe you could have done that. You should not have, on a skill
should not have been in that position.
You should not have got to that position. Right.
And now, clearly, I train with you guys. This is how we practice. This is the philosophy that I'm used to. So that's very normal to me. I'm very used to, even if I'm in a position that I might feel like I have a chance in, I'm used to the ref calling it and being like, nope, you let him have your back, you're done.
Yeah.
Right? But have you gotten a lot of complaints running tournaments like this over the years when you make a call like that? Because at a certain point, that's a judgment call, right?
Yeah.
How do people who aren't familiar with that feel about that usually?
The rounds-based system helps with that somewhat.
Okay.
Because in the rounds-based system, you lose a round for safety, and it doesn't feel as impactful as, like, losing a match because of a bad call.
Interesting, okay.
Right? You lose a round because somebody had a hold of your arm in a weird way because your gear got stuck on their sword or something. I would rather every single time stop that for safety and either reset them or award it to the person who had the dominant position. And then you have another opportunity to do this.
Yeah, it's 1 of 5 or 1 of 3.
It's 1 of 5. It's not
the whole match.
It's not statistically as devastating as other systems.
As you get 8 points and you walk away with nothing, and whoever gets to 12 points first wins.
Okay. That makes sense.
That is something on a fencer perspective that is hugely agitating, right? Especially when you knew, well, he didn't really have anything. My strap was stuck to his quillion. He didn't have anything, but now he wins. I feel ripped off. Right.
So what I'm hearing is, got to have your defense game. You got to have some good footwork, and you have to be used to fighting in close, because that's a big difference between our tournament and other tournaments. We will allow you to get in close with each other because we count everything equally, from stabbing them at long range to putting them on the ground safely, or you pommeling them. So some schools that, if this is their first time coming to this event, need to work that in some way.
So yes. So I'm going to say the controversial thing that everybody will want to skip to, so that it can show up all over Facebook or whatever.
We're going to get the sound bites.
Yeah.
Don't worry. We know how to do this viral thing. We're going to get this 30-second clip, and it's going to be great.
This is going to be the worst part. If you don't pay attention to anything, this is the thing to get mad about. If you need something to get mad about this week, this is it.
Here we go. Jeremy offering his services.
Throwgate. Right?
Ooh, yeah. Okay.
Throwgate.
I know where we're going.
If you don't know, it's not hard to find. I'm torn on the whole situation because I 100% understand the safety perspective. However, being an experienced wrestler, my belief is the person that initiated the throw, he's using momentum. He had closed off the other person's hips. Maybe the throw was valid or wasn't valid at that event. I don't know. I don't really care. I'm not getting into that.
That's a rule set issue, not a safety issue.
Yeah, that's not about the safety piece. I don't have a problem with the throw. Okay. I have a problem that the fact that the referee didn't award it earlier. Like, I think if it was me in this situation, and the way that I train our referees, our line judges, if that's what you call them, is the moment that person scooped down, isolated those legs where the other person couldn't get away,
Right.
it was over. It's done, right? Maybe the defender still had the opportunity to pommel. Maybe he could have done something, but what he couldn't have done is defended himself safely. That person,
That opportunity was passed.
That opportunity was well past.
That's
So
fair.
either you call it a double, or you award it for the person who had started the attempt.
But you're saying you've got to, as the ref, make that judgment call before you get to the dangerous throw.
Yes.
Okay.
Before the throw even begins, if you're good at it, right? Or jumping in with that staff that you have that nobody uses, right? That at that point you're touching both.
Yeah, this is a pet peeve of
both
mine
participants
personally. Right.
that you recognize some action is about to happen. That you're on top of that action, saying, "Whoa, good enough."
Yeah, we're done here.
And that you're able to go back to both competitors and explain, okay, here's what we're doing, here's what we're rewarding, or, you know what, guys, I stopped that for safety because he definitely had your legs. I saw where maybe you could have pommeled him. Let's just go ahead and reset it in the middle. Let's have another opportunity. What I will warn you about, and here's what we're watching out for, throwing on that floor, not
Right.
okay. Right. If I can shut down that antagonistic situation before it starts without prohibiting your art, prohibiting your ability to display your art. The other thing I would say on this is I probably would go through and award it to the person initiating the throw anyway. And the reason is the risk-reward factor, right? The fact that you're able to get into that position, set up that situation. I don't want to penalize you saying, well, yeah, but if you would have just thrown him faster, right?
right,
If you would have hit
yeah.
him harder, if you would have
Yeah, we
done
escalated.
something,
Yeah.
right?
Because then it's going to be not just someone picked up and dumped them. It's going to be someone gets up and then slams
Slams
on the
him.
ground.
Yeah.
Helmets are flying.
Because then you're not
so-
talking about technique anymore. You're talking about intensity.
Yes.
And that's a different animal.
Yeah.
Like and to take this away from throws per se, maybe throws aren't in your event or allowed or whatever. You don't agree with them or you don't train them, and that's okay. The other end of that, right? Like thrusts, for example. I don't want to see a flex on your blade. That's not really what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
If it looked like it touched him and it thrust him, then it got past his line of defense, and it probably is a thrust, right? Whether it's an inch into you or a foot into you, it shouldn't matter as much.
Well, and of course it's difficult to judge sometimes.
It is
always.
difficult to judge.
But the idea should be, in my estimation, did you get your point on their skin? Or
Yes.
where their skin would be if we weren't wearing protective gear.
Right.
That's, if I got that far, the fact that I didn't extend my hands another inch, or that I didn't extend them so hard that it flexed my blade when it hit your nose,
Right.
shouldn't actually be what we care about. It should be about whether or not I was able to get my point on your face.
Right, and like we've talked about before, like the controversy of rewarding slicing. So like
Yeah,
hand
this is a
pressing.
good point.
A lot of people can't feel it because of gloves, which is good. I mean, I want protective
I
gear
don't,
that
I
I
don't
can.
want my hands to hurt at the end of the tournament.
Right, but also like from someone who has accidentally raked their hand across sharp blades before, and
Right.
the immediate pullback away that you would experience, that becomes something that becomes the person watching can see it, but the people in it would not be able to experience it unless they were sharp blades.
Right.
Like to quote like Romeo and Juliet, Petruchio gets stabbed in the chest and gives a dialogue. Well, we have documents that people went around for a while with a sucking chest wound, and even though you didn't die immediately, but for reality
You're
is
Walking Dead. Yeah.
right. And you know, in training, a lot of times, like, well, he kind of just tapped your hands, Kyle. He didn't really get a good hard hit, or he tapped you here. I don't want a person to touch me at all. That's not the perfect victory that I'm seeking.
Right.
And I think for our training, because I train with you,
We keep
And
saying that as caveat.
this is nepotism, people. Just get over it. But the idea behind it is like the perfect victory is to kill them, be completely defended, and there's nothing.
Yeah.
There's no call at that point.
Yeah.
I stabbed you in the chest and then I defended.
Well, but to bring it back to the practicality, do you think that there's a chance that most of what we're out talking around here is about that ref having the confidence and the presence in that ring to be the person who says, no, that was you, he got past your defense, it's over. We don't need to talk about intensity. And having the ability to, if there's a throw about to happen, break it up and have people feel confident they saw something good. All that tied together into that presence and power of the ref.
Ref and judge training is critically important here, but the big piece that I think is different than I see in a lot of other places is you thrust Kyle. Okay, we stop the action because some other things happen in there. Right, it gets ugly. We come to the middle and we say, did Jonathan thrust Kyle? Yeah, I think so. Did Jonathan thrust Kyle? Not really sure. I don't know that it actually hit him hard enough, right? Did Jonathan thrust Kyle? I didn't really see it flex, so I'm not going to call it. Okay. Did Jonathan thrust Kyle? Yeah, but then Kyle kind of defended that, moved back, and then he hit Jonathan. Okay. So I've got all these different perspectives. So at the end of the day, the question is not if Jonathan thrust Kyle, or even if how well Jonathan thrust Kyle. It's what behaviors am I rewarding as the referee? Right? Not the decision or judgment call that I make. That may differ depending on a lot of different factors, right? I want to reward Jonathan the fencer, okay? Not because of Jonathan personally, but because Jonathan was able to lay his tip on Kyle's chest, and that was good enough. Maybe he didn't have anything. Maybe he didn't have enough forward momentum, or he didn't estimate his lunge correctly, or maybe he was trying to hold him in the bind and just show the judges, look, I have contact, good enough. Because if I say, not good enough, what am I really saying? I'm saying to Jonathan, what you did was good, but next time do it a lot harder.
Yeah, and you're encouraging at that point a level, an increase at least in intensity. And I worry. I've seen it a couple of times that you create this escalation of force. Yeah, and you wind up, and I've been in fights that I have to stop, and I have to kind of check out of mentally or in sparring. I've been in sparring matches where that starts happening. You can kind of feel the other person getting frustrated, and you kind of escalating and them escalating. You have to at some point say, no, we are in protective gear and. We're not trying to hurt each other.
Right.
And you have to at some point say, no, this has to be more about skill.
Right, because we've been at tournaments where the other opponent's like, well, I didn't feel it. Well, if you didn't feel it, then I guess it didn't really count. And I'm like, that's the point of the safety gear. So, I have clamshells on and giant forearm braces and this much level of padding on me. I'm not going to feel it. That's why the people around me are supposed to be the ones keeping...
Yeah, the ego gets in the way, right? The ego gets in the way. If Jonathan manages to slip past me and it just scrapes off my mask as I was moving my head away, my internal argument is, well, I don't know that it even would have hit me because it scraped off the side of my mask, which is actually probably would have just been air, and I would have brilliantly, bullet time dodged out of the way there.
Yeah. Now, clearly, I'm Neo.
Right. Which is great, and maybe that's true. But you have to appreciate from an organizational standpoint, right? The behavior, the risk-reward behavior of what we're talking about here is if we go back and we say, yes, you did brilliantly dodge out of the way there. Terrific. We don't think that was good enough to not call it a successful thrust from Jonathan. And you have other rounds to go through and show us that you can dodge just as beautifully, or hopefully not have to dodge at all,
and defend yourself first.
And defend yourself first correctly.
Well, and again, I want to, before we move on, circle back to that escalation of force thing, because you're right. The ego gets in the way, and the emotions, and any inch you give people to let those emotions and ego dictate the next exchange can get ugly. I think of myself as a safety conscious person. I'm not out there trying to get hurt or hurt somebody. I work really hard at that, but in a tournament, my emotions are here, and I've been in a spot where I touched their mask and moved back and I was super happy about it, and the ref said, it was tippy, I don't want to count it. Now I'm mad.
And you feel
now I'm like, I'll hit him next time.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be that guy.
Or maybe you have a different referee next time and they go, whoa, that's way too much force.
Right,
and
exactly.
Well, I was just conditioned by this other referee. And so now you've got this battle, right? That, well, how much is too much? How much is not enough? And what are you going to call? So I would rather we always go through and reward. Does Jeremy have Kyle's wrist?
Clearly.
He does.
Yeah.
Right? Is this a dangerous spot for Kyle? Yes. Was it difficult for Jeremy to get here this far in a fencing competition? Yes.
Yeah.
That is a win.
It's over.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
I
over.
agree.
I don't have to get my wrist snapped up or anything.
Because what's Kyle's alternative, right? Kyle's like, well, I'm way stronger. I can resist this. I can pull my hand away.
Well, I still have my sword
And
in my other hand. Yeah.
I say, well, I'm strong too. I can go through and resist that. And then he tries to jerk away violently, and I try to pull him back violently,
And then something gets
and then
snapped
something
up.
gets broken, right?
Yeah. And I think
Unnecessary.
And I think a lot of times, yet again, we need to go back to the idea. This is a dumb metaphor, but like,
Here we go.
you should just have someone should bring an Albion Sharp and put it strapped to a table and just be like, touch the blade. Now remember, that's what you're fighting with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
that's
not a
good point.
lightsaber, but by God, guys, remember, these are real weapons, and you are in a martial context. And I don't want even the tip to graze me.
Yeah.
I don't even want the edge to press me.
Right.
I mean, that's just, we got to remember sometimes that it is a martial art because people would die if it was real. And I know, yet again, we're a bunch of grown-ass adults swinging blunt swords at each other. But if we treat it as a martial art, we get things that are closer to what we study versus, all right, cool.
Right. Well, and we get more out of it, and it builds the community better. Yeah, all those things kind of
Yeah.
follow in place. I would
Yeah,
agree.
and I don't have to wait for the green light to go over his head so that I go, yay, and I don't care what he did.
Right.
Right.
So,
There has to be some respect there, right? Respect for one another, respect for the institution, the art that we're trying to capture.
Right.
And I think we all agree with that until we're facing each other as combatants,
Yeah.
right? We all think that that's true until, I've thrust this guy 3 times and nobody's called it.
Yeah.
And now I've really got to do it.
now I'm thinking about, like, how hard do I got to hurt this guy? Because I've been in that situation, and I've admittedly lost my temper in some matches where it's like, I clearly hit that guy. I watched him stagger. And they're like, no, you didn't hit him. And I'm like, do I need to murder this guy?
Well, yeah, and every time I've heard, nope, the hit wasn't good enough.
Right.
All that my competition emotionally charged brain hears is I have to hit harder.
Right.
It's not, and I don't think that's helpful.
It's not. It is absolutely not. And I think if you are an event organizer that you come back to this situation and you have found in your own reflection, man, we had to give a lot of yellow cards. We had to give a lot of red cards for excessive force. Is it something in your event that is maybe promoting that? And it may not be your event structure. It may be one referee, right? Or it may be a difference of opinion in your referees on what it is that they're trying to have the fencers display. I think this is very prohibitive to certain people from being able to practice within that tournament or event. You have folks that they're not as physically gifted as maybe some of the other competition. Maybe they're shorter and they got stubby legs. I have stubby legs. I don't know if I do, but I feel like I do.
I don't even know what that means.
But there are factors there that we all can't control, right? Big tall guy with Viking blood or whatever, and super long arms that can hit you before the match even starts.
Yeah.
Maybe that's all he's ever won with. Maybe that's his whole
That's
move.
his shtick, yeah.
I don't want to prevent the 4'10" female, from being able to compete against that guy.
Right.
Or compete against him safely in a way that she feels empowered, in a way that I can potentially win here, right? Well, you're never going to win, Janet, because you can't thrust him hard enough for it to count. Okay, that's not appropriate. It's not fair.
Or you can't compete because the 6'5" guy is going to be encouraged to hit hard enough that the 4'10" person doesn't want to step in that ring anymore.
Or exactly.
Yeah.
That she never feels like she has a fighting chance or a safe fighting chance to do so.
Yeah, and I find it interesting. I want to address this right before we move on to the next section. We've had this conversation significantly, like in our club and in our discussions, talking about how we do not want to reward more intensity. We do not want to reward just harder hits. We want to encourage finesse and art and showing that instead. And yet, Simbrogi has a little bit of a reputation for intensity and complaints about hard hits. Why do you think there's that kind of a dichotomy?
Did you catch the number of that bus?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know a good answer to that, honestly.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Oh God, he turned it on us.
Dang.
That damn
Okay.
Uno card. I personally, as being a student of yours, have been with people of high enough quality that intensity becomes mandatory as your skill level increases. Because we're fighting Derek. It's A game time. There's a
Right.
certain level of competition and competitive and, dare I say, physical ability you need to bring to the fight.
Yeah.
Because it's a real fight at this point. Because Derek will kill you. As soon as Derek flips the switch to competition mode, you have to fight. This is not playtime. This is now
Yeah.
narrow your game down, work on the puzzle in front of you, but it is a very violent puzzle. It's like going to a jiu-jitsu tournament. When I went to Naga one year, and I was a heavyweight, and I was like, okay, first round, oh God, I'm in a fight. And then it's like high-level competitors, you see them throwing each other all over the place. And there's a reason they're in the black belt division, because they can handle that level. The problem that happens sometimes with us is we go to a division that's small, it's open, and some of us are used to a high level of competition, and sometimes we go in there and things happen because we're walking in with an intensity that we're just used to, and then we have
When you say things happen, what do you like? I don't want that to sound too ominous.
Okay,
I want to take a minute and explain that. Like,
I am used to, I pull back in a Zorn Hood and I throw Zorn How.
right.
People move away from me because as soon as I rear back, it looks like I'm going to kill you because that's what the stance is meant to do. I'm pulled back like I'm just about
Well,
to
it's supposed to be a
decap-
mental game. You're supposed to be pushing them
Yeah.
without touching them.
Yeah,
Right? Yeah.
Joachim Meyer's like, you need to make them think that you're just about to kill this guy, and then you step forward, and you're cutting good hard blow because you're expecting the Zornhound to deflect anything that comes in and hit them.
Was that a direct quote from Joachim Meyer?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So like the stances should be the animal or whatnot or the emotion. Yes, boop to boop, and it's like someone stepped into it more than once at a competition, and I felt really bad.
Yeah, because that'll hurt.
Yeah, it does. Like that's a freight train coming at you. It's like I'm a 200+ pound person. You do not run straight at me. But then after the third or fourth time, I'm like, please move. I'll do something else. Like,
Well, to piggyback on that, and I don't want to take all of the responsibility off of us. The critique probably is valid. I think we do fence and we do fight very hard in everything that we're doing, and a lot of it is like what you're saying. I have personally been in situations though where I feel like the referee did not have an appropriate level of understanding of what potential outcomes were there. Let me give you an example. So we were at Krimpau a couple of years ago, and I love Krimpau. It's a terrific event. I recommend it. One of the best events I've ever been to. I was working. I was in a match against a young lady, and she is maybe 100 pounds, maybe 5'1". Okay, and she is very determined, and I was applauding her, her effort in what she was doing because she was working really, really hard against me, and I was very impressed. She bound me. She moved in, she dropped her sword, and she grabbed a hold of my leg. Okay? I still had my weapon in my hand. And I had her on my leg trying to lift me and throw me. Now, this isn't... I'm not trying to be braggadocious or anything.
Sure.
Physically, with no names, no anything. I don't think that this situation works out very well for her.
Yeah.
Right? I don't think that the one person armed outweighing you by at least 100 pounds, with you having a single leg position with your back and your head turned to them, I don't know that anything positive really happens right there, right?
Yeah, we're not talking about that double leg throw from a few minutes ago.
Right.
We're not, yeah.
Yeah, we're not talking complete isolation. We're
Right.
talking, you have a hold of my calf, and you're
Yeah.
pulling on my
Good job.
calf.
your
It's
leg
a
is
calf.
not your leg is not lifted up.
It's not even moved off the ground. The referee let that situation go on for almost a full minute of her standing there pulling on my leg and me showing I can kill her
easily with a pommel or something.
And looking at him trying to say, what do you want me to do here? Because I don't want to hurt her.
Right.
Okay. And that's not me speaking down to her. That's being realistic about the situation
that you're in. Right.
You got back of the head and spine. That's my only target.
That's the only place I could strike her, places that I'm not allowed to strike her. So what do I do? Right? As a referee, at that point, you either stop it for safety, you award it to her or me, or you just let us do it again. Let us do it again. Or let us start in a similar position where we're able to work from. There is context to the things that we're doing, right? I don't need to pommel your brains onto the floor for that pommel strike to count. If I move past your weapon, I've contained you, and I've got that weapon up and moving, before it ever makes contact, I should hear halt.
Yes. Well, but I think that again goes back to what we're talking about with encouraging art over encouraging force.
Right.
The more you're encouraging that art, the less you're going to see scenarios where somebody pops somebody in the back of the head because they have their emotions up and they want to make sure that they get counted for the point that they earn.
Right.
Because we've been to tournaments where, like, I made it a point to ask, because my first art is Filipino martial arts, and everything was throw a hard shot, get in, hit him with the pommel, take him to the ground.
Right.
The end. That was what I started with. And so I'd have to ask, are pommel shots counted? And you could see looks on people's faces like, what are you talking about, pommel shots? I'm like, pommel shots. Like, oh, yeah, oh, cool. Yeah, they'll be like 1 point. And I'm like, cool. So I get in, I work in, I pop them in the
pommel,
face.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't get counted.
Right.
And then I was like, and then it's like, okay, well, maybe they didn't see it because I just placed it. So the next time I pop him and his head moves, well, they still didn't count it. So then the next one, I basically almost decapitate the guy, putting him on the ground with it. And then it's like, okay, well, it counted. And so it was like, okay, I know my criteria.
Here's my benchmark.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it was like, well, that's getting excessive, Kyle. It's like, that's the only time you ever call it. And this is my only tournament game I had because I'm a baby newling at tournaments.
Newbie.
And so thus I punched my way through a tournament.
And earned a reputation.
And earned a reputation. But that reputation was built on the idea that I could not place a strike. I had to basically all but take someone's helmet off their head.
Yeah. Well, and to come back to the question that you turned back on us a minute ago to finish this up, I think, like, if I was to give my opinion of why this happens, I think our sparring, and from what I've seen, I'm not trying to be arrogant or definitive, but from what I've seen, the sparring and training we do at Simbrogi rises to a very intense level very quickly. We tend to throw... The difference between sparring night at Simbrogi and tournaments, as far as intensity in the matches, is not very much for me. Yeah. It's an emotional difference, not an intensity difference. And I think in visiting other clubs that's not true everywhere. Mm-hmm. And so I think when we're in a scenario where, without meaning to, I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but without meaning to, they're encouraging intensity. They're not calling the small stuff because they're trying to be as fair as possible. I think people who train intensely, what we hear is, oh, you want to see it?
Yeah.
Let's make sure you see it.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably, if I was to give an opinion, for me at least, why I think when at a tournament I tend to crank it up in that way. Maybe. I don't know.
And I think, kind of bringing this back, if people are wanting to get ready for that, because overall this is about the event and wanting to like get people, because we don't want to scare people off, because it's not like we're like murdering people, because we have actually a fairly small injury rate compared to other events.
For sure.
Yeah.
But how would we, if we were they were watching this video, how would we provide instruction for them to get ready for that in their own training? Like mentally or physically, to be ready for like, hey, you're going to come to an event, it's going to be, it could be a higher intensity than you're used to, or like, this is the first time you're going to a tournament. How would you suggest they get ready for that?
The most honest answer I can give, if I was their instructor, knowing what I know about us, and knowing what I know about our event, Let me give you an example, and you two may be aware of this example. But our third ranked seed at our in-house event, our in-house tournament, Autumn Fechten, that we did a couple months ago, we had guests from other states come as well, a handful of people. I know so many people are jealous right now that I said there was a tournament in the middle of whatever and they weren't invited. I'm sorry. Our third placed seed was Sarah Schultz. Okay. Sarah Schultz is 5 foot, 105
Barely
pounds.
5
Yeah,
foot.
soaking wet. My gosh, yeah.
I saw her get underestimated through that whole event.
Oh, man, I wish I could
And then I saw her specifically injure at least 2 people. Okay.
So I shouldn't laugh.
It's not the amount of force that her body generates.
No.
Right? It's not her height. It's not her gender. It's none of those things. Right? She is a relatively meek person. Right? But she was serious. She was serious business.
Brought her A game.
Yeah. She did, and she had a very good day. That being said, I think that sometimes there is a difference between the type of event that you're competing in, right? Like you talked about, there's a difference between the black belt level event and this is my first ever tournament.
Yeah, that's true.
And you may go in with some club school culture that's quite different than walking into, in my opinion, some of the most dominant skilled fencers in the world. We're very heavily competition minded because it's a great proving ground for material that you're working on. That being said, I mean, we're going to fight hard the whole time because, and I think this is a cultural difference. The way that Jonathan and Kyle show respect to one another is by not really pulling their punches with each other.
Very much so.
They can do so in a friendly way, in a competitive way.
There doesn't have to be
realistic
animosity to be given 100%.
way. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Because there's a respect from people who know the intensity that they're fighting at. If I go into an event and it's purple belt up to black belt into it, let's say it's like grappling or it's an MMA event, you need to know that this, because we've had this conversation with other people. Some people view tournaments as social events.
Right.
We're showing up to hang out with our friends.
Which is not bad.
And whack 'em.
Of course, it's fine.
I mean,
it can
it's-
be social too.
Yeah.
Some people treat it as strictly clinical. This is like an Olympic level event. It's everything is suits and ties and formality. I think where we do a good job, in my opinion, and this is just as far as that goes, is we kind of straddle the line between the middle ground of that, where it's social enough and friendly enough, but it still retains that competitiveness. So that way we want everyone to come, we want everyone to have a good time, we want everyone to have a bunch of good fights, we want people to learn, but at the same time, we came here to play the game, and the game is to fight and to have fun and to show our art. It's hard to straddle that line sometimes, and I think some people see us being very jovial and mistake that as this is a social event. But as soon as the helmet comes down, we've had this comment before, it's like all of our fighters, as soon as that helmet comes down, like
It changes.
they're on task.
Yeah, I mean, Sarah is a great example because she's there 4
really
days a
is.
week.
She really is.
She's there 4 days a week. She's there every single class. It's, hey, we're going to go train ringing in the other room for a while, and she's the one raising her hand that goes in there and does it. And she holds herself accountable to all that she's doing. And she pushes herself really, really hard. If you think that Sarah is going to come to this event and she's going to fight against you and she's not going to be as intense as she is in class because you're not used to that, you're very mistaken.
Yeah.
You're very mistaken. And she may accidentally injure you, and I hate that that's... I feel like maybe I've approached this whole conversation the wrong way.
I don't know. I'm enjoying it.
Well, there comes a point where it's like people say, because I weigh 235 to 250 pounds, depending on how many cinnamon rolls I've eaten that week.
I understand.
My proclivity is that me injuring somebody is kind of like a duh statement.
Yeah.
All right.
You're a big dumb brute.
I'm a big dumb brute. But whenever someone who weighs 100 pounds, is 5 foot tall, is very meek, is coming at you with an intensity level that, oh, I wasn't expecting that, and that some things are getting through that I wasn't expecting this person to be able to do, that speaks to the intensity and training of the person, because we're both swinging the, not me, but you would be swinging the same. I have to have an extra long sword because I'm a big dumb brute.
Buffalo. We're using the word buffalo these days, aren't we?
The last thing I would say on this topic of intensity, strength, power, whatever, if you wanted the bullet points of what we're trying to sell at our event is we're trying to sell the most friendly, positive, like if you want to test your art, you want to meet new people, you want to have a good experience. I don't think there's hardly anybody that goes to one of our events that has a bad experience. We do after event surveys, and we have plenty of opportunity to hear that kind of feedback, and it's usually exactly the opposite about how much fun they had, how they feel heard as far as their complaints and frustrations and whatever. That's one side of it. The other side of it is you're coming to the most clinically martial, tough event you could probably go to in the United States, in my opinion, because we're not playing around. We don't play around when we train. Our league, we don't play around in anything in our league.
Attitude for sure.
We'll shake hands and we're super friendly. We go back to the line. I love Josh. Ferret. He's a great guy. I'm going to throw Josh Ferret right on his head every single time, and I'll do so in such a way that nobody thinks it was malicious. But Josh and I both know I picked him up and I put him right on his butt every time.
Yeah. And then afterwards we shake hands, we go have a beer or something together, and we know that this is competition.
To give him any less is disrespectful, right?
Yeah, and I think that culture permeates so much of what the Shuffle League in general does. And I think that was the biggest thing in 2019 when I started traveling a little more with the tournament team, as I saw going to places that were not part of our shuffle culture and seeing that difference. Is I think we say it out loud, very distinctly, very clearly. I don't care what club you're from. I don't care if we fought before. I don't care what my perceived skill level is versus your skill level. When we step in this ring, you are getting 100% of what I have, because that is how much I respect you. And it's not out of intensity or anger.
Right.
It's out of, this is how seriously we're taking this and how seriously I am taking you.
Right.
Yeah.
This is your challenge, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to give you the tough challenge. I'm going to give you the challenge that I am and what I represent.
Yeah. I would say that seems super core, at least to Simbrogi. And I would argue in my somewhat limited experience that Shuffle has that really strongly. And that's something not unique truly to us. Of course, there are pieces of that elsewhere, but I think we do make an effort to say it out loud and make sure that that's a huge part of our culture. Yeah, for sure.
The Southern League does play. It's an intense game for us.
Yeah.
It's not like just a social event for us.
Yeah. Although clearly it's very social. If you've ever been to a shuffle tournament, my God, we have a good time.
Jesus.
We've covered a lot of topics. There's other things I would love to get into. I really wish we could spend an hour talking about judging and how we should train judges and work on that. And I wish we could spend more time on comparing tournaments, because I think that's kind of fun and very informative. But we've gone for like an hour and a half now. We should probably wrap up the tournament description side of this. So let's finish with anything you want to plug. You can stare at the camera and tell us anything that you're working on right now that you'd like the world to know, or
any defense or anything.
Anything
projects.
You like everybody teased about that are projects coming down the line or anything like that.
Well, the thing I'm most excited for is when everybody is up and healthy again and we have the opportunity to travel more. We're pushing a lot of instructor certification at our school, and that's something that eventually I want to open up to our league and to other areas as well. We have a lot of people lately that have asked me about like our ranking system and our ranking structure, and the opportunity to come and test with us or adopt some of that. Some of those people in our league, some of them people I've never met or even heard of before. I really want to, I don't have a book to sell you. I don't have a video that is going to teach you some basic rudimentary things. I don't have any of that. What I offer is I want you to have the opportunity to work with some of the best martial artists in the world and some of the best and most serious sword practitioners in the world. Everyone that we have at our school, that's at our studio, whether they're active right now because of the health stuff or not, I could put random people down here and they will give you some of these same answers and the same attitude. It's serious business, and that's what a lot of people don't stick around. But the people that do, You know, it's a goal. Everybody wants to be a Fechte. Everybody wants their name on the wall. Everybody wants to, be an instructor and give their piece of it. And we don't give participation trophies. Right. If you, it's not you've been here 2 years, so you deserve this. That doesn't happen. We have people that move up through those ranks really fast. We have people that it takes them a lot longer just because of their attendance or maybe where they started with the material. I would like to, if I had one thing to pitch besides our event, which I think is a premier competition, it would be that if you want to up your ability and up your conditioning and up your skill level, there's an open invitation to anybody that wants to come train with us. Or if you want one of our certified instructors to come to you, whether you know who that person is, not Kyle.
It's okay. If you want Kyle, I'll come with him and I'll be his handler. It'll be all right.
The reality is, if you want Kyle to go, Kyle will go.
Yeah.
But Kyle is going to eat all of your food.
All of it.
All of your food.
And leave cheese in the car.
Jonathan is going to drink all of your booze.
That's very accurate.
If there's a drama to find, he will find it.
That's true.
Derek will talk to you for hours and hours about whatever you want.
It's
and
3 in the morning.
Stop.
And it's like, well, why don't we stop?
But
we're like caricatures, but it's accurate.
If you need something to elevate your system or elevate what you guys are doing or what you're working on, we train in multiple different systems, and we'd love to come help you and share anything that we know and anything that we're doing. Nothing is a secret in our approach or our methods, and we have really, really great people that would love to come work with you and your students. So feel free to send me a message through Facebook or through email. We'll include that here.
Or through Fighting Words, we'll pass things on. Fighting Words is honestly, let's be honest, an outgrowth of Sombrogi. Yeah, that's kind of where we come from.
Yeah, pretty much, HEMA for all.
It's a project of Kyle's and mine, but let's be honest, Kyle and I are doing this because we value our participation in Sombrogi so much.
Yeah, we wouldn't be here without you and Sombrogi, so
thank you guys.
We have to honor that.
Well, I appreciate that, and that's our spirit too. Is our goal is not to beat the world; it's to change the world, right? Sometimes the only way that you can do that is just by consistently proving over and over and over that you've got the skills to back it up. And we've got a lot of people with a lot of really good skills. So if you want any piece of that or you want to be a part of that, just let us know.
Yep. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Fighting Words. Go out there and start playing whack-a-mole with your friends. Bye.